Welcome to the Packer Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Herrick, and I'm sitting down with leaders and disruptors in the fresh produce industry who are reimagining how we grow, move, and deliver fruits and vegetables in a changing world. And joining me today is Jennie Coleman, president of Equifruit, a fair trade certified banana importer. Thank you for joining me, Jennie.
Oh, thanks for having me, Christina.
Absolutely. When I was thinking of change maker, you know, I can't get past banana badass. So, and it's in your title there.
I
So
know.
that to me was like, okay, if we're gonna talk about change makers, I think we got to start with the chief banana badass. So I think that's the best place to start. Let's talk about that. What is it? What does being a banana badass mean to you, and what does it mean?
Well, what we're doing at Equifruit is changing the banana industry and changing a pattern of global trade that has been in force for 100 years is not for the faint of heart. You have to be something of a badass to set your mind to uh, a challenge which hasn't truly been tackled before. And we really see being a banana badass as somebody who has the courage to change. And that can be either as a member of the Equifruit team, but we have a lot of honorary banana badasses out there who uh, want to see change too. And they can have the power to do that. If you're a retail buyer and looking to rock your banana category with an innovation that is ethical and the right thing to do, you too can be a banana badass by finding that courage to make change in your banana category.
So I have to ask, am I considered a banana
Oh,
badass?
for sure, you're a
Okay.
banana badass.
Well, I
You're
mean, I feel like
100%.
I'm an honorary member because I've had a few of the banana badass tags on my
Yeah,
name tags,
for
sure,
sure.
but I'm like, just wanted to find out. So
Yeah, yeah, you're there. Check in with us if anyone is in doubt of their banana badass status, and we'll let you know. Essentially, if you're in on changing the banana industry for the better through uh, a women-owned B Corp company like Equifruit, then you are a banana badass.
yeah, well, good. Yes, I thought it probably was, but it's again, I've got the
Confirmation. There it is. Done.
CBB. I feel like I should catch up. Um, so let's talk about some of the progress that's been made since Equifruit came in the industry, and you're talking about disruption and kind of where the goals of being both a banana badass and Equifruit. So what progress have you seen, and what
Yeah.
challenges too? Let's talk about challenges as well.
Okay, well, let's start with the good news. The good news is that we see a huge change. So Equifruit is a company that I bought uh, nearly 12 years ago. In the year before my predecessors sold me the business, they were doing just one container a week, and we're doing 30 times that now. Now, that's still a small amount in the overall banana industry, but it certainly points to dramatic increase in consumer interest in our product and also the impact that we're having with our growers. In Canada right now, 1 out of 3 organic bananas is a fair trade banana, and most of those are through the Equifruit label. In fact, we're the market leader on fair trade banana imports and marketing. Market leader, I should say, in North America. So those things are super, super positive. Now, the challenges um, are still great, and they pretty much all turn around the price um, of bananas and the courage that it takes to think differently about a banana category and most of all to raise prices to make room for fair trade supply chains. And uh, so there, if I am honest, there are days where we celebrate wins and other days where we fall into what we call internally rage blackout, where we go into a grocery store and we see the low price of bananas and we work that supply chain back and we think of how little is being returned to the small growers or the plantation workers in that supply chain, and it makes us a little bit crazy. We at Equifruit are really looking for a more fair distribution of value along our supply chains and fair along the supply chain, not just those small growers and plantation workers we speak about most, whom we advocate for, but we also want to reassure grocers that they have it in their right to raise prices at retail to make a little bit of more margin on this fruit, that it's normal for prices to rise and it's not normal for banana prices to remain stagnant the way they have for decades now.
Yeah, and I think, obviously I'm privileged. I get to go to industry events and I get to see all of the great conversation starters that you and your team come up with to get people thinking about the difference. Whether that's a cup of coffee, right, and the difference in how much that would be a year. Um, so I guess again, you and I in the industry, obviously, we're closer to understanding the reason why and also the motivation, where those consumers definitely maybe aren't thinking about it. We would obviously we want them to, and we wish they would think more about the cost of a good and then what that means to the person who picked them or grew them. But yeah. um so I think that's a great place to go next, is to talk a little bit about some of those misconceptions and you know in this big goal that Equifruit has. Where are those misconceptions, and is it consumers, is it retailers, is it people in the industry, is it all of the above? you know Talk about trying to get to that goal post.
It's kind of a retail golden rule that you don't raise the price of bananas. And we have pitched to people who say, you know, Jenny, we love Equifruit, we love your vibe, we love what you guys are stand for, but we don't think that they will. The people out there. And I think, well, you're a person, and you got it. So I think that if you, as the retailer, uh, make a responsible procurement decision, and yes, raise the price for your customers, but communicate to them why the price has gone up, that they will that they will follow you, that they will respect um, that the courage you've taken to do ethical sourcing in the banana category. And let's just talk about that price increase. This is not asking people to go from a tiny little, I don't know, I don't know why I use this analogy because I know nothing about cars, but just think of this tiniest little, most economical car you can think of. And think of then like a cyber truck that costs, I'm told, like $1 billion. We're not asking people to make that kind of jump. Really, we estimate that the increase at retail of a fair trade banana program would be about 20 cents more per pound. Now, Americans eat on average 27 pounds of bananas per year. So if we do that math, 27 pounds times 20 cents per pound more for an Equifruit Fair Trade Banana program, we're asking consumers to shell out at about $5 US more per year. I mean, that's not the cost of a Starbucks. It's very, very accessible. And it should really just be fair trade should just be the basis for responsible procurement.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing is, like you said, it's when you think about the amount of money that you're talking about over a year, that's really insignificant for consumers. But there's still that disconnect, and I can't remember if it was someone from your team or somebody else was talking to me about this, that there's this also this fear that retailers have it with consumers finding out about how things are grown or how things are picked, and just kind of finding out kind of the deep dark secrets of some of those things. And there's that reluctance too, so that if you're having this conversation about ethically producing fruits and vegetables, that may lend itself to scrutiny and on other commodities. And so I don't remember if that was something your team said,
Yeah,
like I said, or if I'd heard that before. But I think that could be part of it too, is just kind of.
it's true that these conversations can be really uncomfortable. Even if you're just talking to a retailer, they may have been buying in a certain way their whole career, maybe they've been doing this for 30 years. And here comes Equifruit saying, you know what, there's a problem with the low price. There's a problem with pushing down on the supply chain to maintain a low price to please customers. But I think sometimes this is what being a banana badass is about, is to have those difficult conversations and think about what is in our reach to change. That may have been the way it was. And once you know the facts that low price is generally a subsidy granted to us by workers through low wages and poor working conditions and toxic environmental practices, if we just flip that on our head and we think about what is the actual cost of sustainable production, and are we interested in the future of bananas as a category? Bananas, is the number one seller in the produce department. And we just have to think about, okay, if we continue to let this situation carry on, who, what next generation is going to want to go into the banana industry? Who's going to want to grow bananas? Who's going to want to work on a banana plantation? We have to think kind of big picture about these uncomfortable facts about the way our global food systems work. Bananas are, such a, a lovely, um, easy story for us to tell that story with. I do lots of lecturing. I know that we're speaking today to the produce industry, but I do a lot of lecturing in MBA classes, business schools. I'll talk to lots of people. I'm constantly trying to get this story out. And, these students have just finished a business case on an electronics firm from Taiwan. And suddenly I'm talking to them about supply chains and worker rights and so on. But they are all consumers of bananas. And immediately that story becomes really tactile, really concrete. And that's the story we're telling. We're telling the story about how consumers can participate in change for very, very at a very, very low bar.
So, I think that's interesting, and yes, I think that's part of the challenge, is having those difficult questions. But you know if there's something else the industry needs to be doing, and I'm not just and I think this needs to be all the banana badasses collectively, not just the team at Equifruit here, to really help bridge that gap and bring that conversation forward. I mean, do we need to hear from workers? Is the growers, like, what's missing to kind of help really move that needle forward?
Yeah, it's true that these are big questions, and obviously, a lot of consumers in North America have never really thought about where their bananas have come from, or how they're grown, or under what conditions. So there is a big education piece there to consumers. But we, as an industry, we can um, tell that story. It doesn't have to be just the Equifruit team. We can work to get people to think more broadly about their produce supply chains and to think about what sustainability means in the produce industry. I'm a part of the IFPA Sustainability Council, and we are working on sustainability charter that we want to put out as a reference document for our industry. And this touches all kinds of areas of sustainable production that I'm not an expert on. I'm really focused on fair trade, though fair trade focuses on environmental, economic, and social pillars. Uh, this sustainability charter from the IFPA will hopefully be a guide for the broader industry to think about um, how we grow and market and talk about sustainable production.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting because when I came back into the fresh produce industry, I don't necessarily think that I thought of ethical labor as a sustainable practice. I should, but you don't necessarily think about it until you really do some digging. And obviously I've written stories and talked to folks, and then you go, "Oh, it definitely is." And fair trade, obviously, as you alluded to, touches on a lot of different components of that big sustainability umbrella that we have. So it is really interesting. But you know I just hope that conversations like this, and I'm not saying that this podcast is going to save the world here, I wish it
It's going to
would.
save the world. Christina, fact. I checked in earlier. It's going to save the world.
Oh, there's the
And then
soundbite for that's the preview. You and I have saved the world. But I think having these conversations are really, again, as you kind of talked to before, it's a difficult conversation that has to start. But having that conversation, starting that conversation, discussing what fair trade means, and as we said, the nominal cost it's going to be to a consumer to then support the folks that are helping bring those bananas here. It all kind of comes together in this great package. And then of course Equifruit has fantastic marketing as well,
Thank
that really
you.
helps bring that conversation forward in a bite-sized way. And I that is a very good pun for those who know how much sharks are involved in Equifruit's conversation. Bite-sized, yes. So I'm kind of hitting the end of our quote unquote difficult questions here. So let's talk about what we can do to support. How can you get more banana badasses? And then I also want to end it with like a bright spot of like, what's a bright spot for the future? We've had some kind of difficult questions about getting in and doing this and that. So how can we support banana badass? How can banana badasses support the industry? And then where's it going in the future?
Yeah, at Equifruit, we say that we are after global fair trade banana domination. We just can't support the status quo, where only 4% of the world market is bought and sold on fair trade terms. So that's kind of our guiding light. Of course, we say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but you should know that we are relentless, and we are uh, optimists, and we know that the more people we speak to and the more people aware of our brand, the more the process of mindset change is taking place. And that's what this is all about. We're selling bananas, but we're selling a change in mindset on banana procurement. And we're feeling lots of love from the industry, and we know that love will soon convert to contracts. And Yeah, just give me a ring, 1-800 Banana Badass, if you want to be part of that change.
I think you have to be an optimist. I mean, one, if you're a pessimist, you know, it's going to be a miserable life, first of all. But I mean, for I think for a change maker, you have to be, as you said, you have to be relentless, but you also have to be a optimist too, because you have to believe in what you're doing. And obviously, I believe in what you're doing. All the team banana badasses believe in what you're doing, but I think you have to be an optimist in order to enact change, because otherwise that conversation could be, you could have this conversation, and if you're a pessimist or negative, it's an entirely different package that
Yeah.
it's brought in.
Yeah. I mean, the issues that we are concerned with, serious, um, these are serious issues. But we have found that people don't want to get lectured at. They don't want to be preached at. They don't want to feel down every day. And so we have to think about this as the positivity of change and the positive impact that comes with doing the right thing. And we are optimistic that despite troubles in our world, we are fundamentally good people who are going to do the right thing.
Yes, absolutely, and I think that's the best way to be. So that's kind of the end. As I said, we were nearing the end of my tough questions. So now we're starting this thing that we call the fresh take, and it's a few rapid
Okay.
fire questions just to help folks who don't already know who you are,
Yeah.
um, get to know you a little bit better. So
Okay. I'm ready.
I thank you for being a good sport. I hope this won't be too hard. So,
All right. I'm ready.
um, what's something people would be surprised to learn about you?
Um, well, early in my adult life, I worked as a cook for Dan Aykroyd, the the Blues Brother, the Conehead.
Oh my gosh, that's like a great trivia answer.
I
Those
know.
like group trivia, get to know you things. Was he nice?
Yeah, I had a great time.
There
This
you
was this was years and years ago. I had finished a master's degree at the University of Toronto, and I knew that I went and worked in Namibia in Southern Africa for a couple of years, and I knew that was coming, and I had this kind of 6 month window, and through kind of a funny connection, I started working for the Ackroyd family at their farm. The Ackroyd family has had a farm outside of Kingston, Ontario, Canada since I guess nearly 200 years now, 1830s. And at the time, they were spending a huge amount of their life there, and their cook had quit. And I, my friend said, "Hey, I know somebody who's would be right for the job. I'm not a professional chef or anything. I just love to cook." And they tried me for a couple of weeks, and I stayed on. They were very kind to me. I lived with them, and I was heading to Namibia, and they paid my plane ticket, and they sent me care packages, and they were good people. Had a great
wow.
time. Yeah.
That's amazing. Um, wow. Well, the next question, I think I probably know the answer to this one.
Okay.
It is, what's one challenge in your business that keeps you up at night, and how are you dealing with it?
Uh, Now we go back to the serious questions.
I know. I'm sorry. I gotta balance this out.
The question that keeps me up at night is this question of mindset change. On the days where I'm feeling a little less optimistic, where I feel frustration at the slow pace of change. And I think to myself, how can we jumpstart this change? You have to be, if you're a change maker, you have to be patient. Sometimes there are days where it's okay to lack patience. And on those days, I lie awake at night thinking to myself, the ask is is so little for the impact that this will have on grower communities. And, you know, we have to really think about this big picture. If in countries other than ours, other than Canada and the States and whatever sort of banana consumption import countries that may be listening to this podcast from, we have to think about how people in the rest of the world are being treated. You know, if there are solid economic opportunities coming into a country, well, there's just going to be more stability, and more stability means probably less violence, and less violence means that people are probably going to be, less violence and economic opportunities. People are probably going to be more um, content at home, and there'll be a decrease in migration. You know, these are big macro questions about the world, but they come down to something as basic as your banana supply chain. And I want to see change.
Yes. Well, I think that's a great answer, and it's interesting when I decided on these questions, it really varies, but on what person you're talking to. Obviously, with you, like I said, I kind of had a feeling I knew where what direction we would go with that answer, but yeah. So last of the fresh take questions, and this one I think is really interesting because I think it could be you could take it anywhere. So um what's something in either agriculture, fresh produce industry, or outside of it that you think that those people tuning in should pay attention to?
Yeah, not sure how many more fresh take questions there's going to be. And so whether I answer this in
That's
a
it. This is
serious
the last
way.
one. This is the last one. I promise, no more torture.
Okay, well, I'm going to be a little bit serious again. We Equifruit participated in a fair trade banana forum in Colombia in Santa Marta at the end of May. And we signed on to an agreement or a promise or an engagement to talk about um, sexual harassment and gender-based violence in, obviously this was in the banana industry, but I think more broadly, you talk about ag more generally, um, in the agricultural sector. Now, I think that sexual harassment and gender-based violence goes beyond those spheres. But as a female leader in the produce industry, um, who has experienced myself and my, predominantly female team where we have been harassed, um, it's important for us to talk about this. The name of this campaign is Silence. Um, oh my gosh, I'm having a blank. Silence does not protect. You know, we have to be we have to be out there. About saying we're not going to take this anymore. We deserve to be treated with respect in our workplaces, whether they be an office or a pack house or a banana plantation. And this is something I think we've got to bring into the light and be courageous about talking about. And the more we talk about it, the hopefully the less this behavior will be tolerated. That's kind of a downer way to end, but it's such an unfortunate truth that we have to get out there. Should we go back to telling banana jokes?
No, it first of all, I mean, it's happened to me. It's probably happened to almost
Yeah,
every person tuning in, and it's yes, this is a lot of the conversation stems around sexual harassment that women face because there's a lot of in a male dominated industry and in a male dominated world, there are a lot of things that people say, men say that they don't necessarily think is sexual harassment. But it unfortunately it can be anyone that's really a victim, and it's important to have these conversations because I think sometimes victims feel like they're the only one. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
feel like that anymore. I feel like the conversation has changed. But when it
Yeah.
first happened to me, sure, I thought I was alone in my own little world and no one else, I thought I was the crazy one.
No.
Um so
Let's not be the crazy ones.
yeah, absolutely.
The perpetrators are crazy. Let's speak out and affirm that 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 we have a zero tolerance for this type of behavior. So this is a commitment that Equifruit has made. We are the first trader in the banana industry to have signed on to this, and part of what we agreed to when I signed that document was to use our company platform and voice and resources to speak about these issues. And so here I am today.
Well, I don't want to say I'm glad that you brought it up because it makes it sound like but that's the feeling that I have is that I it's something we need to talk about. So, it's important to bring up, and I thank you for sharing that on this platform. Again, I know we're trying to save the world here, but at the same time we're also, these are the types of conversations that I want to be having on the podcast. Is I want to be having difficult questions and
Yeah,
conversations because I think that helps elevates the discourse. And as much as I want to have fun and tell jokes, we need to have a serious side to this. So,
yeah.
thank you again for coming on, and thank you for sharing. And next time I'll try to bring you on, and maybe we could do just all jokes. Although,
We can just do a carousel of
yeah, for
Equifruit
comedy, you
banana
have
memes.
to connect with the algorithms again, and
Yeah.
get some jokes. But yes,
If you want to have a pick me up at the end of this, please go and visit our socials. Check out at Equifruit on Instagram, for example. I guarantee you're going to end the day with a laugh.
Thank you. That's what we needed. Thank you again, Jenny. I
My
feel like I could
pleasure.
talk to you for another half an hour plus. It's been a great conversation. And that is it for today's episode, brought to you by the Packer Produce Market Guide and Farm Journal. Don't forget, if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you took a moment to rate and review the show. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. Thank you again for tuning in and for all that you do to keep fresh produce moving forward from field to table. Bye.